Okay, my friends, this is going to be about what is the responsibility of academia. If I can present evidence like this, and then I show other evidence of my specimens having been CAT scanned and DNA tested and blood coming out of them, and things that nobody have ever expected, even including these no-toes, which have springs built into them instead of bones like normal feet. That's the heel bone right there, and that's the strap that comes right up, same thing. Now, we have a whole variety of things. I even have a goose here that petrified in the same manner. There's his feathers. They all died in a flood, and that's what preserved them, is because the collagen had an affinity to bond with the metal silicates. Well, it actually gets aluminum silicates. That's what feldspar is. It's aluminum silicates and collagen bonded together, which formed a barrier to protect all of these creatures, their feet. They're all the creatures. I got body parts from all kinds of bones, and I will show you but it's been refused to be examined by academia. Now, I don't think that's acceptable, and that is called suppression of verified information, which is not there. I don't think they're supposed to do that, but that's the question we have to ask. Okay, my friends, this is something that is probably about as serious as it gets. These are the procedures for investigating academic fraud. Now, this is from the National Academy Press, and this is a responsible science, ensuring the integrity of the research process. Research is where you go out and you find things, you present them to the academics, and they evaluate it. That's the process. Okay, it's as simple as this. Academic fraud is a threat to the intellectual integrity on which the advancement of knowledge depends. So lies, stealing other people's work and changing it and doing all kinds of things to it, and suppression of valid information is what they consider to be fraud. All right, the first thing was, really, what is academic fraud? What is the fraud? The first task was to define academic fraud. In the abstract, the definition seems easy, even if the identification of fraud in individual cases is not. All right, you have to really look at the details. The definition of fraud distinguishes between an honest mistake, which we all make honest mistakes, and deliberate misstatements made with an intention to deceive others. Deliberate. Think about it this way. It's either a mistake or it's deliberate. Now, academic fraud involves a deliberate, so we have to go with deliberate for fraud, effort to deceive, and includes plagiarism, stealing somebody else's work, fabrication of data, just making up lies, misrepresentation of historical sources, more lies, tampering with evidence, making the evidence seem a lot different than it really is, and then selective suppression. Selective suppression of unwanted or unacceptable results and theft of ideas. Well, suppression of mudfossils, in my mind, might qualify as fraud. Now, is it suppressed because they're just not capable of understanding what's in front of them? I don't think that's the case. Let's find out what happened to me in Connecticut when I found my mudfossils in Connecticut, and I presented them to the universities and the basically authorities in Connecticut to control academia. And here's what happened. Okay, so now we have the background for how to investigate academic fraud. Let's see what my circumstance was. I discovered mudfossils on my own property here in Connecticut, and I contacted Yale University because they're right down the road, basically, from me. And I talked to Derek Briggs specifically because his primary research is in the preservation and evolutionary significance of exceptionally preserved fossil biotas. Now, biotas just means flora and fauna, which means plants and animals. All right? It involves a range of approaches from experimental work on the factors controlling decay, which I now understand, and the fossilization, which I understand, through the studies of early diagenetic mineralization, which is nucleophilic substitution, which I understand, and its organic preservation due to transition metals, which I do understand. And also he does field work on a range of extraordinary fossil occurrences. Well, and their taxonomic description and analysis. That's specifically why I went to him, because of his qualifications in this field and being right down the street. And I'll try to explain to you the sequence of events that went over the number of years. Now, this was in 2015. I said, I will get DNA tests done, I'll get CAT scans done, I'll do everything, and I did. And these were the 3 samples I sent off. I extracted them, so if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I contaminated, I contaminated. That did not happen. The specimens the quality was excellent, as I will show you. This was very, very well done. It was expensive. There was 3 tests. And I extracted it. They extracted the DNA sequences from what I presented to them. What I presented to them was literally raw blood from deep inside, not right on the surface. I didn't just go wiping off and send it off and say, ooh, let me see if there's any blood on here. No, I took it from deep inside, and I can show you there was blood, literally blood coming out. These rocks were issuing scabs of blood. And it depends on where they're entombed and how they became encapsulated. The blood remained inside of them. And literally blood coming out of them. I will show you. Now, they did the 3 things, a 36-inch tip, a lung, which is this one, and then a mud tip, and I will show you those. That's what I call them. And this talks about all the first and second elutions and all these kind of things. They did oligogonal primers and target-specific marker DNAs and mitochondrials and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, all of this, all of the procedures are here, the temperatures, the times. This was, and I believe this was the first of its this was ever done on these ancient rock extractions, which is mud fossils, which also was the first ever done on ancient humans. And here's what happened. These were all the elucidations and the concentrations and the densities and yada, 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 yada. I don't know. A lot of this stuff, amplicons produce primers, and this is a whole another realm to me. However, it's not to the Helix Biolabs. They were fabulous, fabulous. And the report, as you can see, is very, very, very specific. And this is what excited me. Excellent quality DNA sequence was obtained from the 36-inch tip and from the lung, which is this. This just came out, actually blood. The 36-inch tip also was. And I will show you these anatomical body parts. And here's what it came out to be: Homo sapien, mitochondrial B, and D loop regions. And these are all the primary sequences, CTAGs, and which, you know, is the different amino acids. And I got very, very deep into this because I had to. I had to learn so much because I had to be ahead of everybody, which I was. I was ahead of all of these people. And I cannot imagine anybody being as incompetent as to just say, no, we can dismiss all this. None of this means anything. Just because you have physical samples that show precisely what a lung looks like, first of all. I mean, it's exactly what a lung looks like. it's even got the depression of the heart back here. This is a left human lung. And these things died in a great flood. This is what is all upsetting them, is it because it does show something to the Bible could be correct. I'm not even saying that. But that came from a flood victim. You see that flat spot in the back there? All of my stuff is like this. And I figured out what did happen by continuously researching. Emanuel Velikovsky said we were almost impacted by a brilliant comet 3,500 years ago, and it literally was so impactful that it boiled the oceans and the seas and the rivers, and everything was almost killed, and everything was, the collagens turned into feldspar. This is all feldspar on every single thing. And what that did was it sealed the collagens with aluminum silicates. I am deep into this. And I can go head to head with Derek Briggs 24 hours a day, and he is just going to be spinning in circles. Because I know so much more about this now than anybody that's breathing oxygen because of his refusal to examine. And this was just up to a few years ago, and I was not just emailing him. Of course, there was Armand every time, basically, and and then there was Derek Briggs, and I went all the way up to the president of Yale. I tried all of them, and nobody would. Only thing Derek Briggs, the last time I had any response from him was, I still think they're rocks. I'm not kidding you. Now, if that's a rock and it's not a foot, I don't know what to say. And this is new a biota. All right, now, if this is not a bone, and it has scabs coming out of here, all right, and that is a lung. We know that for a fact. Anybody knows what a goose looks like. There's Caesar, my goose, and no feathers look like. There's the feather patterns. And everything stayed preserved because of its fascia. There's his neck. It's all in here, but this is all transitioned from nucleophilic substitution. Something else that Derek Briggs is very interested in is how things do fossilize. And as far as giants go, when I'm talking about giants, I am talking giants. That is a hair follicle. That's the pili erector muscle that makes your hair stand up on end. That is the sebaceous gland, and that is the root, the hair stalk. And it's going to be a curly-headed person because it's got a flat side. There's a vein in the artery at the bottom. I'll show you the anatomical of this. These are how big these creatures got. This is what's freaking them out. Now, can they just walk away from that because it's too spectacular? Or is this academic fraud? I don't know. I'm asking the question. All right, here's my proof of the kind of sizes we're talking about. That right there is where that muscle hooked into. That's what's called a pili erector muscle. And that makes your hair go up on end. This is a root ball from a hair. This right here is the sebaceous gland. Now, anatomically, they don't have it in the correct place. If this was a human, I don't know what it's from, but it's a pretty good sized hairball. And the sebaceous gland is down here directly across from the pili erector muscle. All right, so this anatomically, and this is what I see, every one of them shows it way up here. And what that does is it greases the hair so the hair can go up there. It's a sebaceous gland, oil gland. And coming out of the hair top here is a flat surfaced hair, which when I posted about this, people said, oh, my hair's curly and it's flat on one side. So this was going to be a curly-haired person. And down at the bottom, there's the artery and the vein right at the bottom. Of course, it's all transitioned. This is what's called nucleophilic substitution. And it happened in this hot water flood from Velikovsky's account of all of the history. And he was destroyed, and I wrote a book about him. And I'll show you, and I will show you a lot more that supports my side of the thing, that I can't find any credibility that anybody could miss this and dismiss this. So it boils down to, what is an academic's responsibility? Should they be, as the authorities and teachers and professors and professing, should they be able to be spoken to? And should they have to confront valid scientific information? That's what it said about academic fraud, is a suppression. Suppression. Now, by not looking at it, are they suppressing it? I would say everybody told me, go to Yale. You're right down the street. They're going to love this stuff. Peabody Museum, that's what they're all about. I said, they won't look. He said, that's, well, you're obviously an idiot. So I see them as suppressing this information. It's the only way I can see it. Now, you see, this just came out a couple days ago. Why are flood myths so common in stories from ancient cultures all around the world? And they talk about the same thing. This is Velikovsky's research, and now they're trying to take credit for it. Okay, Velikovsky was destroyed by fellow academics. He was a friend of Einstein. Now, I wrote a book about Velikovsky. I called it Mudfossils, Velikovsky Minds in Collision. He wrote Worlds in Collision, which explains why we have all the mud fossils. The impact of this fiery comet into our atmosphere combusted everything, burnt, because huge floods, and everywhere on Earth it was recorded. So it's not just here or there, it was through the whole, every culture had the same story at the same time, which was 3,500 years ago. And that, I believe, is exactly the time, that's all I can take it from, is when these things became petrified, and they're all flat on one side, as I showed you or will show you. Now, and I presented this, well, I tried to. They would never look at anything at Yale, but I tried to show them the head, too. And we actually ended up having a CAT scan where they recommended University of Texas. That did not go well. At University of Texas, Austin. The whole thing was very contentious. And this went on for years. Until just a couple, I've been emailing them regularly for years and years and years. And so I think it's time to say this is not just accidental that they missed it. I would say. Now, what is their obligation? That's where we're going to fall into. Okay, I have a little bit of a harsh look at academia now, but listen to what they have to say about UCONN and about not having any money in the budget anymore to support these kids. They're paying a ton of money, and they are not being well represented. But listen to what they have to say. We're in trouble here in Connecticut.
Tonight, frustration on the UCONN campus.
The school's president is raising a red flag over how the budget will potentially slash funding.
Channel 3's Hartford Bureau Chief Aya Glal is live tonight on the campus in stores with more for us. Aya.
Mark and Aaron, the UCONN president is very concerned about what this means for the future of UCONN. The president stating that if the budget gets passed as is, this means that UCONN could be in a deficit of about $160 million. That means tuition could go up, and now students are planning a walkout.
Well, that's good. They should walk out. Mudfossil University, you can come here. Now, if there's some students who want to take over this university and run it in Connecticut, I am willing to stand behind you and present all of my evidence, including the light research, including the geology, including the biological information. We discovered interstitium 10 years ago, which just got recognized as an organ a couple of years ago. We've been studying things that have been missed because in this process, 100% of the biology is retained, it's transitioned, and it's become stone, but it's all still here just as it was before. The springs are in the feet, the blood is in the veins and arteries, the feather patterns are still on the birds. All of this is fascia and fabric and coating and feldspar, and I understand it 100%. Now, I would like to have some university students get a hold of me, because right now, I'm telling you, you guys are going to, you're being used and abused as far as I can determine. All of the stuff I have determined by doing all the scientific things they should be doing in your universities. All they're doing is reading you to your books, and if you read back to them what they told you, you get the piece of paper. That's it. As far as I can see. I don't see a lot of research. I don't see any interest. I haven't had one single question, and I'm not kidding you, not one single question about my research since I started 10 years ago. And the stuff that I have is just overwhelming. So come to Mudfossil University on YouTube. Somebody get a hold of me, and we will start our own school, and you guys can run it, and UCONN can do whatever they want to do. The same thing with Yale. If they're not interested, somebody should be. Okay, I'm pretty serious about starting this school. I called it Mudfossil University on YouTube, and I'm trying to explain everything there is to be able to be explained. Light, biology, history, geology, physics, space. These are the particles that Fermilab was looking for right there. We found them in our experiments. And you will be able to actually do these experiments yourself. This is quantum foam. They say empty space isn't empty. No, it's filled with those particles I just showed you, which are the same particles that Fermilab found. This is Fermilab. This is not me. Although we found the same particles. Only we use light. They use protons just splattered everywhere. We use light so we can see the actual particles, and we can see them divide into sterile muons and electron showers right here. And here it is happening. Fission, fusion. We should be able to get free energy. Let's pool our resources and get some people involved. And, you know, most of this can be done online. This doesn't require a lot of infrastructure. So what I need is some thumbs up. I need you to start talking about this. Now, it's roger@mudfossils.com. No D in Roger. Now, spread the word. Spread this word. Open up this discussion. And it's all welcome to be no suppression of information. No worried about getting an F and being destroyed by your professor. We're in this for an open forum, like they used to do thousands of years ago. They would sit around and say, well, what do you think? What do you think? You speak, I'll speak. But I'm a material scientist. Everything I've shown you has a material sound basis for it. I don't make things up normally. I try not to. And this stuff is not made up. This was light research done by Rodney Warren, who will always be known for the Warren effect, which is this right here. And say a prayer for Rodney. He's not been well lately. So anyway, this is reality, and we can cover every base. So it's not like, well, I can show you as mud fossils and history. No. I can show you this. I can show you chemistry. I can show you biology. We've been studying the human gut microbiome, which basically means that all of your enzymes and so forth are created by bacteria. And those are the things that live in your immune system. It's a fluid-filled highway through your system. It's called the interstitium.